So recently I read the two Zelda manga written and illustrated by Ataru Cagiva, The Dreaming Island and the Triforce of the Gods, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed them, so I figured why not make a video on them. So first of all, there's a good chance you've never heard of either of these manga, and that's because neither of them were ever released outside of Japan, or in a language other than Japanese, to my knowledge at least. They've become pretty rare these days as well, because they haven't been printed in over 25 years or so. So what are these? Well, basically they're manga adaptations of The Link's Awakening and The Link to the Past stories, respectively, released in Enix Corporation's Gangan Comics monthly manga anthology series called Monthly G Fantasy, which would usually feature stories set in a fantasy world with supernatural themes, as well as action and sometimes even horror scenes. Among these were Zeruda no Densetsu Yume o Mirushima and Zeruda no Densetsu Kamigami no Triforce, both of which are the Japanese titles for Link's Awakening and A Link to the Past, written and illustrated by Ataru Cagiva, who is a fairly unknown mangaka to my knowledge, though he has worked on other manga as well, like for the manga adaptation of the video game The Legend of Dragoon. So in this video I wanted to briefly go over these two manga and discuss what I like about them, what I dislike about them, some parts that stood out to me and such. So this video is not a speed reading, since you can read the manga yourself over on historyofhyrule.com, where some absolute legends have translated the entirety of both stories, with high quality scans to boot. Normally I'd recommend you buy the manga yourself, but as I said, they're only available in Japanese, so this is pretty much the only place where you can read them in English. So in case any Square Enix employees or lawyers are watching this video, please note that I do not condone piracy, but us foreigners are left with basically no choice here. We'll start with the Dreaming Island manga, since it came out before the Triforce of the Gods manga, believe it or not. After its serialization in Monthly G Fantasy, it was collected into two tankobon volumes between May and September of 1994, with each one spanning a little less than 200 pages, which is standard for tankobons. The first thing I'd like to talk about is actually the artwork of the manga. I haven't really talked much about the art style of the comic when I was talking about Ishinomori's adaptation of A Link to the Past because, while I think it looks fine, I don't think it's anything special. As for Cagiva's work, I think he has a much nicer art style, which many people would probably say is pretty good, though nothing amazing. But me, however, I adore this art style. The way the characters look, their expressions, Cagiva's humor, the environments, story tone, it all just works so wonderfully in my opinion. Again, if we're looking at it objectively, there are a lot of other manga that look quote-unquote better, but I love Cagiva's art style to death. I can't really put into words why I feel that way, but I guess it boils down to the good old I just find it really charming take. Link's character here is really enjoyable as well, more than it was in Ishinomori's comic in my opinion. I know this isn't really a fair comparison because, you know, this isn't an adaptation of the same game, and Link's Awakening takes place after A Link to the Past, so I can't technically compare the two works between each other. But Link has the same character traits here as he does in Cagiva's Triforce of the Gods, so therefore, I can compare the characters somewhat and say that this take on the hero of legend is much more interesting. Not just when comparing this version of the character to the one from Ishinomori's adaptation, but also when compared to the games as well. Since Link doesn't speak in the games, he often comes across as quiet and reserved, almost shy at times. Here, however, Link is loud, cocky, confident, full of himself, and to him, he's the greatest. He has this charisma to him that just makes me smile at every panel that features him. Of course, there are moments when he is challenged by a much stronger enemy, like when he's fighting Pig Warrior Karuna, this giant moblin. Link actually has very high combat intelligence here, which is displayed front and center in this fight. He calculates that Karuna will take too long to draw out his longsword in order to hit Link with it before he lands an attack, so Link charges in immediately, ready to strike, only to remember that his sword broke earlier at the last possible second, which means that his plan fails. Whoopsie. And even when he's defeated, falling from a cliff to his certain doom, he yells at Karuna that he hasn't won, and that he'll be back, and of course he comes back, whoops Karuna's ass, because of course he does, he's just a guy like that. That's a really cool character flaw to give your main character. Link is confident to a fault, but that just makes him all the more fun to watch when he does succeed, never backing down from a fight, always sure of his victory. And yet, you still constantly root for him, and he never comes across as an asshole, because the way Link is written here is how every Link should be written. He's just a genuinely good guy who wants to help people, no matter what, and he's brave to boot. What can I say, he just exudes relentless courage and optimism. He's the hero of legend, though he calls himself the hero of Hyrule, which... I think you got the wrong fella, my guy. The moments with Marin are also great. The manga genuinely had me grinning from ear to ear every time she appeared. Cagiva really managed to capture the magic of those moments where Link and Marin are together, like when traveling to Animal Village, where this time, there are monsters chasing the two of them, and Link can't kill them because he doesn't want Marin to watch him slaughter everything in his path, fearing that she'll see him as a monster and just... I love this take on their characters. Also, this panel of Marin with her morning hair brings me so much indescribable joy. Taran is also very fun here. He kinda just disappears from the game after you leave the mysterious forest in Link's Awakening, but here he's very much a recurring character. I love his introduction, where Link is panicking after waking up for the first time and he's really close up in Marin's face, and he just looms over the two of them going all like, "What are you doing to my daughter?" before apologizing a panel later. He's also very much an average dad character, but that's not a bad thing. As for the other characters, I really enjoyed the Owl. Bow Wow's interactions with Link are fun to watch, Lady Meow Meow is creepy as hell sometimes, but she has fun interactions with Link as well. Though besides Link and Marin, my favorite character is the new original character, Felicia, Link's companion fairy, given to him by the Owl. Felicia's and Link's chemistry is amazing, and his unending cockiness and her doubting his every move, they just clash really well, and it's really fun to watch them interact. The boss fights and dungeons are fun as well, the action is paced pretty well, and it's very easy to follow what's happening from panel to panel. On top of that, the action is fun to watch. Since the manga is split into 9 chapters over 2 tankobon volumes, that means that Cagiva had around 400 pages to work with, and thanks to that length, he was able to properly tell the story that he wanted to tell. The story feels very well paced, the characters are fun and have great chemistry, the world feels alive, the danger is ever looming. Really, I have nothing but praise for this adaptation. It captures the magic of Link's Awakening but adds its own spin to it, keeping it fresh. The scene when Link tries to leave the island is what really sells the story for me. If you've played Link's Awakening, or watched my video on it, you know that in the Southern Face Shrine, Link discovers that Koholint Island is merely a dream of the Windfish, a fake place that doesn't exist in the waking world. He is then faced with a difficult decision. If he wakes up the Windfish, he will get to go back to Hyrule, but in turn the dream island of Koholint will cease to exist. And if he doesn't wake up the Windfish, Koholint will continue existing, but in turn, he will drown in the vast ocean. I think, I'm not sure, is Link just asleep during Link's Awakening, or does he actually no longer exist in the waking world? I have no idea. In Dreaming Island, Link shakes before he even approaches the room where the inscription of the truth, so to call it, is even found, having to steady his arm in order to open the door to it. Once he finds out that Koholint is just a dream, he imagines Marin falling into the sea and drowning. He is so scared of what might happen when he wakes the Windfish that he straight up starts going through the 5 stages of grief. At first he's in denial, saying how this is definitely a lie, and questions if he should even believe what the mural says. He runs outside, asking Felicia if what he saw in the face shrine was true. She says that it is, and Link goes berserk. He yells that she lied, that the owl lied, that everyone lied. Link can't understand why he is the messenger of the Awakening, this entity that's destined to destroy the dream island of Koholint. He's the hero of legend, he's the good guy. He's not gonna be responsible for the destruction of an entire island and for the deaths of tens, if not hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, just because of some prophecy. Even if it's all a dream, he doesn't want to fulfill that prophecy. So he dips, claiming to no longer be the messenger of the Awakening. He tries to build a boat to escape, at the same time asking Nakura, the ghost from the game, from whom he acquires a new sword after leading him back to his house, and who already passed on to the afterlife at this point, why he ever even fought, what he fought for, and if he knew that the island would be destroyed if he woke up the Windfish. After making the boat, he goes back to Marin and Taran's house and asks Marin if she wishes to leave with him, to which Marin says yes. They sail in the morning, only to find out that once they get far away enough from Koholint, they somehow make their way back to Koholint again. Link tries his hardest to get away from the island. He paddles and paddles, desperately, but unfortunately the legend was true. It is impossible to escape the island by conventional means, and Link must wake the Windfish to escape its dream. When they make their way back to the shore, Link asks Marin why did she want to leave the island, to which she responds with stating how every night she dreams how she's in an unfamiliar place with a bunch of people, all of them being joyful and happy, and by leaving the island, she thought she could dream without ever waking up. She then pulls a similar statement to one that the owl says in the game, how verily it be the nature of dreams to end. No matter what, Link must wake up. Alright, I said this wouldn't be a speed reading. My bad guys, sorry, I just like this so much. The entire manga is like this, it's such a beautiful and well-written story, and I can't help but smile every time I even think about it. All the notes, all the feels, Cagiva just manages to hit them all so perfectly, and I applaud him for that. The epilogue is also just as incredible as the rest of the manga. After one final day of relaxation and spending time with everyone on the island, and after almost confessing to Marin, like my guy was this close, Link heads to the final dungeon, where after saying goodbye to Felicia, he heads inside, defeating the final boss, waking the Windfish, and waking up from the dream, with the final few pages showing us how Link wakes up in the middle of the vast sea, unsure of if everything he had gone through was really just a dream. He looks up to the skies, where he sees the Windfish soaring through it, and just like in the game,
Now that Hohlin ceases to exist in Link's dreams, it now exists eternally in his heart, with the final page of the manga showing Link as he rows towards his next adventure.
It's such a shame that this was never published outside of Japan, because this story is really good. You should definitely check it out for yourself, since I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit. Alright, so now that you've heard what I think about the Dreaming Island, what do I think about Triforce of the Gods? Well, it's pretty good, just like Dreaming Island. I'm honestly having trouble deciding which one I like more, since both are really good and enjoyable to read. I think that the Dreaming Island is more polished overall, but I think that Triforce of the Gods is a bit more enjoyable. Triforce of the Gods is based on A Link to the Past, a game that has a much grander plot with a lot more going on and a lot more characters than in Link's Awakening, and considering how Cagiva wrote this one after the Dreaming Island, it's not really a surprise that this story is better than Cagiva's previous one, in my humble opinion at least. So for starters, like I mentioned in the intro, it was originally serialized in monthly G Fantasy, same as the Dreaming Island, with it being collected into 3 tankobon volumes between June of 1995 and May of 1996, and is also around 200 pages long, which is again a standard for tankobons. In terms of chapters, the story of Triforce of the Gods is twice as long as Dreaming Island, spanning over 18 chapters as opposed to 9, but in terms of content, there's about 50% more of it, with it being around 600 pages long as opposed to 400. The artwork is, again, something that I'm a big fan of. What can I say, I just really like the art style. The proportions are kind of weird sometimes, like in these panels where Link is holding his uncle, where he looks like he's 6 inches taller than him, so it looks kind of goofy, but I still like the art a lot. As for the story, it's actually somewhat different than A Link to the Past. It's still pretty similar to the game, with the same events like the journey to obtain the Master Sword, being transported to the Dark World, the fight with Ganon, but it's also got quite a few differences, such as new characters, story elements and plot points. In Dreaming Island, the story is pretty much exactly the same as in Link's Awakening, with a few additions and changes, such as Felicia being Link's companion and Karuna existing, but here there are quite a few changes to the story. The overall structure is still the same, but for basically every element from A Link to the Past, there's an extra "but this is now here as well" bit. I suppose a good place to start would be Link's character. Whereas in A Link to the Past, where the player is supposed to insert themselves in the hero's shoes, and where we don't really know much about Link, the character, here Link is introduced as a very energetic kid, but also a very talented sword fighter, where he defeats his uncle, who is referred to as Zanji here, and whom I'll be referring to as such throughout the rest of this video, since I don't want to keep saying Link's uncle all the time. He's not perfect at sword fighting, and as mentioned by Leader, he must continue to improve his skills, which he does over the course of the story. Link is a lot more reserved here than he is in Dreaming Island, since he's less experienced, so he doesn't come off as full of himself like he does there, but he is still pretty cocky and overconfident, which I really like. This is definitely my favorite rendition of the Hero of Legend so far. Same as in the Dreaming Island, Link is just really fun to watch, and you want him to succeed no matter what. I really like his chemistry with Cagiva's 2 original characters, Leader and Laska. Actually, I'm not really sure how you're supposed to pronounce these, since I don't speak Japanese, but I think they're supposed to be called the Leader and Laska in English, since in Japanese they're called Rideru and Rasuka. But I suppose that's something that depends on the translator, since Ageknim is called Agunimu in Japanese, which should translate to Agnim, but Nintendo of America translates it as Ageknim. So yeah, again, I don't speak Japanese, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Leader is the leader of the Knights of Hyrule and a friend of Zanji. Laska is Link's childhood friend, and a guy whose personality is very similar to Link's. The 3 of them all get transported to the Dark World when fighting Ageknim, and just like in Ishinomori's adaptation, they can't leave until they rescue the 7 maidens. They're fun to watch, since all 3 of them are skilled fighters. They make crowds of enemies look like nothing, and it's all just so cool. I guess you guys can tell that I'm a sucker for power trip tropes, if that's what you call them. I don't know, I just really like seeing strong good guys beating up tons of bad guys and proving how strong they really are. There's something really satisfying about it. As for the other differences, the way Link saves Zelda is fucking wild. He barges into her room, which is when Zelda starts fighting him, since she thinks Link is one of Ageknim's minions, and then Ageknim shows up with the entire castle to stop Link from kidnapping Zelda, after which my guy grabs her and fucking jumps through a window, like, it's insane. He gets pretty lucky and falls into the moat surrounding the castle, with Ageknim noting this as well. I love that, it's so wild and wacky. Zanji's death is portrayed wonderfully here. In A Link to the Past, the game, his death was given little to no explanation, and it had practically no impact on the story. And in A Link to the Past, the comic, his death was given more respect and it adds to the narrative a lot more than in A Link to the Past, with Link wanting to kill Ageknim because he killed his uncle. Here, it's basically the same as in the comic, but dialed up. Zanji dies in Link's arms, and he can't accept that he's gone. It really gets to him, as shown in the scene where he and Zelda get to the sanctuary, and Link is sitting at a pew and crying over the loss of his only family member. This whole scene with Leader arriving at the sanctuary is just really emotional. He tells Link how Zanji may be dead, but he lives on through the sword fighting lessons he taught Link, which prompts Link to burst into tears. I love Leader, he's a really good character. I especially like his portrayal here in the sanctuary, where Zelda, having the personality of a 5 out of 10 woman on Tinder, thinks how crying is a very beta thing to do, to which Leader says it's very noble for a man to love someone so dearly. Absolute giga chat. Zelda is just kinda weird here, like, Link saves her from Agachnim after his only family member dies in his embrace, and then he takes a day to mourn the loss of said family member, and she just goes, "This guy's a little bitch." Some princess she is. To that I have to say, don't worry about them hoes, broski, keep on grinding, king. The next day she realizes how stupid it was of her to say what she said, so she compliments him for having the strength to care for someone so much. Alright princess, you remedied yourself, you can keep the crown. Just like in A Link to the Past, Zelda isn't really a major character here. Major as in, she doesn't get a lot of screen time, since she gets kidnapped by Agachnim and sent to the Dark World, which is a cool scene as well, I might add. So she doesn't get a lot of time to shine, but I think she's alright here overall. Again, that part in the opening act is kinda weird, but overall she's fine. Now Laska. I love this guy. His and Link's chemistry is really good, and it's really fun to watch them bicker and fight with each other. He's kind of like Felicia in the sense that he keeps constantly doubting Link, but he's unlike Felicia in the reason why that is. Felicia is doubting Link because she thinks that he's overconfident and too full of himself, whereas Laska thinks that anything Link can do, he can do better. It's just really fun to watch them go at it, destroying monsters and trying to prove which of them is the strongest, with Leader being there to calm them down. I also like Laska's dad, To, who is just a vibe to be around. He's one of those overly energetic characters that are just brimming with positive energy. It's really fun. I also like how he says how Laska is unreliable, but can be of help when Link is at their house, insisting that Laska go with Link on his journey to avenge Zanji and save Hyrule. Laska is all like, "I don't wanna be no criminal, what the hell are you thinking, father?" After which To beats the shit out of him, and Laska is like, "Alright, I'll go and join Link, whatever." Link of course doesn't hesitate to bully him for being so obedient and listening to his father. There's also a new character in the Dark World called Kanika. He's some guy who used to work for Ganon hundreds of years ago, and who still works for him, as it is revealed later, but he tries to trick the group into thinking that he's betrayed them. Of course, Leader and Laska are highly suspicious of him, but Link refuses to believe that he would ever betray them, which leads to Laska and Leader almost getting crushed in a later chapter, before Link manages to activate the Master Sword's full power just in time. Of course, Kanika does betray them, but then realizes his wrongdoings and helps them defeat Agachnim, although he dies in the process. He's supposed to be a comedic relief, I guess, but I didn't really find him all that funny, to be honest. Like, I thought Link's and Laska's bickering was much funnier and more entertaining than anything this guy said throughout the entire time he was present. He's more creepy than funny now that I think about it, but that's probably just me and my bad taste in humor. He's a tragic character more than a comedic one, and that aspect is executed pretty well, I'd say. But his whole, "you guys are the bronze and I'm the brains" thing just didn't really land for me. Another difference is how Link obtains the Master Sword. You've still got the 3 Pendants of Virtue, but now, upon inserting them into the Master Sword, Link is forced to fight the spirit of the hero. This is probably my favorite thing about the entire manga. Link having to prove to the previous holder of the Master Sword that he is indeed worthy of wielding it is such a cool idea, and I really wish it was in the actual game too. I'm guessing it wasn't because of the hardware limitations, or maybe it's because Nintendo just didn't think of the idea, but still, this is so cool, I love it. The part after they get betrayed by Kanika and fight fake Ganon, when Link falls into the pit and has to be saved by the previous hero, is also something I love. And he even has a fairy, which is a nice touch. I'd really like to think Cagiva predicted Ocarina of Time with this manga, but I'm 99% sure that's not the case. Although, this being the hero of time and also having Navi with him would definitely be insanely dope. But again, that's probably not the case. And plus, the manga isn't canon anyways, so whatever. I like the part when all of the 7 maidens are reunited and they're opening the portal to the Light World, and Link, Laska and Leader have to defend them for 5 minutes. The entirety of which Laska was counting, cause he's just weird like that. Once the portal is open, everyone leaves except for Link, who stays behind to fight Ganon alone. The fight with Ganon is easily the best final boss that we've seen out of these 3 adaptations so far. He's so evil and terrifying, and he's so much stronger than anything Link has faced up until this point. It really looks like he's going to lose, but thanks to the bravery in his heart and all the people he fought for, he manages to overpower Ganon, despite his opponent's insane strength, with Ganon even acknowledging that he's stronger than the previous hero, and a mere child at that. Link obtains the Triforce and returns to Hyrule, right in time for the ending. We don't know what he wished for when he obtained the Triforce, and we don't even get to see what the Light World looks like after we return to it. That's left for the reader to decide for themselves. Instead, we get one final exchange between Link and Laska, with Laska saying how he's a fake hero, because if he didn't have the Master Sword, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Ganon. With Link returning the Master Sword to its resting place, the ancient weapon now sleeps once more, this time, hopefully, forever, as the manga closes with this text. He who is always after adventure in your eyes, you will see nothing but his back. Held in his arms, an unbearable amount of hope and courage. Seeking to explore new places, his journey will never end. He will continue moving forward, forever and always. Like I said, these two manga are really just wonderful, and I highly encourage you to read both of them. What can I say, I'm just a sucker for these kinds of stories of the indomitable human spirit facing the indifferent cruelty of the universe. I suppose that's why I love the Zelda franchise so much. I love that message of, if you have the strength and courage, you can change the world, even against insurmountable odds. And I think this adaptation of A Link to the Past portrays that message so well. And I guess that's about everything I have to say regarding these two stories. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little video, and I hope that you'll check out my other videos if you're interested in Zelda related content. The next video will finally be a review of Ocarina of Time, so subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing it so you don't miss it. I've streamed the entirety of Ocarina of Time on my Twitch channel, but you can find all of the streams on my VODs channel, except for the first stream unfortunately, since I forgot to save that one. So if you're interested in watching those, feel free to check out the channel. I'll leave a link to both of these in the description or the pinned comment. And if you'd like to watch me play Majora's Mask live, follow me on Twitch so you'll get notified once I stream it. I also promised that I would stream the opening segment of Ocarina of Time again, since the first stream was lost, so expect a stream of that in the following days. I suppose there's nothing more left to say, so that concludes the video. My name is Kem, thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you next time.